to talk about The Walking Dead. Pardon me while I tweet this out. If you're just joining, I'm talking about what was for me last night's The Walking Dead. But if you're in the UK, then it just wrapped up. So one moment, I'm just tweeting this out. I wish I could tweet automatically to a couple different accounts simultaneously, but this will do. All right, Manny is watching. Let's see, did anyone else join? Number one on Ask Questions, which means that there is no competition right now. I'm okay. My man, 20D Briggs is here. Alex Delgado. 20D Briggs, we are going to try to guess you in today. I hope it works. Hi, Mars. I'm glad that you love Harry. I hope that he reciprocates. So, who is just joining us from the episode wrapping up in the UK? Because it looks like it ended like 3 minutes ago. For me, it ended last night, so I've had a long time to digest what happened. But it was pretty intense there, those last 15 minutes or so. It was kind of a slow episode until then, and then it was just like no holds barred. So hoping we can grab some people that have fresh eyes, or fresh eye. Sorry, Denise. So we have now 2 episodes left of The Walking Dead Season 6. This was the third from the end. I had predicted that somebody would die in this episode, but my predictions were completely wrong. I was saying it's either going to be Abraham. Hi, Rachel. I thought it was going to be Abraham, number 1. I thought that if it's not Abraham, it's maybe someone like Rosita or Sasha, but I did not see Denise coming. So, Alex Delgado, you predicted Denise. Why did you think that Denise was going to die? Did you start predicting that whenever the episode started, or did you think beforehand? Because at the very beginning of this episode, Denise is like, hey, I've never gone out on a run before, and I really feel like going out on a run, so I'm going to go out on a run. And from that moment, it was like, okay, you are desperately trying to get yourself killed. And if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. So, anyway, it was a little frustrating. I still didn't see her dying. I still did not expect her dying. I will be totally honest. When that arrow went through her head, I was surprised. And I'll tell you why I was surprised. Because that death is actually reserved for someone else in the comic books. And that is the death that I expected. So, it was a nice twist. I knew a death was coming, but that was not the one that I thought. So I'm going to give you some Walking Dead comic book spoilers that are actually very, very old. So if you don't want to hear what happens in the comic books, sorry, I'm going to talk about that a little bit, because last night's episode was a really great twist on that. And the whole Negan build-up, it's been pretty consistently following the comic books building up to his introduction, which has a lot of us really nervous because, Negan makes a big impression whenever he's introduced in the comic books, and it's really an infamous moment, and so it's pretty clear that the show is going to at least live up to that, if not exceed it. Yeah, Denise kept doing stupid things without thinking through it. So it's like, I did enjoy this episode. I did like it. I thought it was good, especially the last 15 minutes, a little slow until then, but I was still hanging in there. But it was one of those episodes where it's just bad decision after bad decision, and it's a little frustrating because we're talking about the episode that was on in the U.S. last night. And if you are in the UK, it would have just ended like 6 minutes ago. So Chris Saunders, I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't seen it. And I'm going to spoil things if you hang around. So sorry about that. Anyway, So, hi, Brittany. Glad you could join us. Oh, good, good, good. So, if anyone does want to give your 2 cents, if you want to talk about last night's episode, please guest in. I'd love to test the guesting and make sure it's working. This is only my second YouNow broadcast. I would normally do these on Periscope, and we have a very good, Essential TV is my company, and we have a very good Twitter following, particularly on our Walking Dead account, which is @EssentialDead. So I would normally do a Twitter broadcast the day after The Walking Dead, but I have to be honest, I do not like Periscope, because Periscope does not let you do a lot of the great things that YouNow does. It doesn't allow guesting. I've waited very, very long for them to introduce that, and they just haven't. And so, anyway, we're going to try it on YouNow this week, and we're going to see how it goes. So I'm glad that people are joining and talking The Walking Dead with us, but I definitely want to make use of that guesting feature if anyone has anything to contribute. So, so we only have 2 episodes left in Season 6 of The Walking Dead, and Brittany, Game of Thrones is coming. Winter is coming, so that is that softens the blow. Knowing that The Walking Dead is coming to an end very soon, at least I know that means that Game of Thrones will be returning to us. So maybe we'll continue talking about that here as well. So anyway, I was just talking about an hour-long exercise in bad decision-making. So Denise, really, it was one of those episodes where a character just keeps doing dumb thing after dumb thing after dumb thing, and everyone else just lets them get away with it. And so as much as I did enjoy what happened, I don't want to say I enjoyed what happened, because it was a tragedy that a character got killed, but it was really surprising the way they did that. And so I did enjoy the payoff of the episode, the last 15 minutes and everything that happens there, but it was a little frustrating leading up to that. It's like when that tree fell by the train tracks and they said, well, I guess we're going to have to get out and walk. It's like, is that really the only road that crossed the tracks? You couldn't just maybe drive around? It's not like there's any trains coming. You've got a probably 4-wheel drive truck. Just like drive around it. I don't know. So The Walking Dead, I love The Walking Dead, but when I point these things out, whenever I point out how dumb things are in the show, I don't do it out of hate. I do it out of love, because I just want the show to be good all the time. And sometimes they do some really, really dumb things that are just a little hard to swallow. So anyway, views on Eugene's bullet idea. Absolutely. I was really into, no apologies, I love Eugene. I know a lot of people hate Eugene as a character. A lot of people have wanted Eugene to die for a long time. But I really enjoy Eugene. I think he's funny. He's a breath of fresh air. I love the mullet. You know, it's party in the back, business up front. That's Eugene. And so I really like that not only have they not killed him yet, but I like that he's still hanging around to the point where he might actually become useful. Thank you, Chris. I'm also a fan of yours. I don't know how I can do that. Let me see. Now I'm officially a fan of yours. I appreciate it. So Eugene finding a use for whatever craziness is going on underneath the mullet. Yes, the bullet idea is brilliant. And it's actually really interesting, because whenever they introduced the wolves earlier in this season, and the wolves have no guns, they're just using hatchets and machetes and whatever sharp things they can get their hands on, it's the first time The Walking Dead has pointed out, like, hey, maybe there's a limited amount of ammunition in this world. So whenever they let that cat out of the bag, they finally caught up with reality. It seemed inevitable that at some point our characters would say, hey, wait a second, we might run out of ammunition at some point too, especially since they're gearing up for war and they went to the hilltop. Hilltop has spears, and they basically said they have no ammunition. So our team is actually valuable because they have bullets still, and they want to keep that value. So I really like that Eugene found a use that is actually an incredibly practical use in this world. And I'm a little concerned because I know certain things from the comics, but I'm not an avid comic reader anymore. I read them years ago. I didn't get past the prison. But I know basically I hear things about what's been going on in the comics. So I'm pretty sure that this actually mirrors something in the comics and it's following that storyline. And I don't know what happens, though. And I'm going to try not to find out what happens. But I'm a little worried because this this factory that Eugene and Abraham find to produce bullets, it's not in Alexandria. And so I'm wondering, how do they set up this shop and manufacture bullets off-site? Now, theoretically, over time, if this is their bullet factory, it's going to both be increasingly valuable and also well defended by nature of having a lot of bullets, but they're going to need manpower to defend it. So, yeah, an outpost. And I think that's a natural evolution for this group. They're in Alexandria. They're pretty cozy now. So sort of the colonial system where they set up here an outpost there, and they kind of branch out. I think we've seen that with the Saviors. Whenever our group the week before, when they went to this big satellite compound, and they thought they wiped out the Saviors, but, it seems like that is not even close to the Saviors. It seems like that's a little outpost of theirs, and our group has incredibly underestimated them. So I think it's only natural that anyone that survives in this world long enough starts to build little outposts of usefulness. But, if I were Eugene or anyone in Alexandria, I'd be thinking, how do I get all that stuff back to the heart of Alexandria? Because can't they move the equipment? Wouldn't that be a lot safer? I don't know. But I'm really interested to see what happens whenever they have multiple locations. And also, I think that helps for the storyline, because one of the things that this show suffers from is having a lot of characters that they can't devote much screen time to, so they're kind of lurking in the background. So if we have different locations like the munitions plant and the hilltop and Alexandria and wherever else, it's like our characters can get broken up and they can occupy these different places. And from a story perspective, it makes more sense for them to be missing for a few episodes in a row. So I think it's good. I'm pretty excited about that. And I really liked the Metalhead Walker. I'm going to share a picture, and you tell me if this reminded you, or if this is what you thought of when you saw the Metalhead Walker. Crown for King. Any Game of Thrones fans? I know we've got some. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought, but not a crown of gold, unfortunately. But I thought that was very cool. I would like to know that guy's story, how he got the metal dumped on his head. And then, let's see, what else happened? It was pretty slow. I liked that the stories were sort of mirroring each other. So you've got the Denise story, and then you've got the Eugene story. And they're basically the same, where two people that are relatively considered useless are trying to survive out on the road, except that Eugene's actually come a lot farther. And I thought it was interesting how they went back and forth. But the Eugene story is much more rewarding in the sense that he's actually doing something helpful. And the Denise one was just kind of an exercise in frustration and her trying to get herself killed. Hello, Frank. Thank you for joining. You are in the right place if you love The Walking Dead, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about last night's episode, unless you're in the UK and you just finished it, or you're somewhere else in the world. And I don't know when it wraps up in other parts of the world. But I do know there are a lot of UK fans that love this show. And we take all of their actors and we make them hide their accents under Southern U.S. accents, and then we ship the product right back to you for your enjoyment. So I'm going to jump ahead to the end. So this is definite spoiler territory. Okay. In the comic books, the character who gets an arrow through the eye from Dwight is Abraham. It's not Denise. And so that is what I expected. I have not actually read this part of the comics, or I haven't read the comics this far, but I had seen this and I knew this was coming. And so the fact that a few episodes ago, Abraham breaks up with Rosita, she gives him the necklace, he loses it at the hilltop, it's like they're giving him so much attention. They only give a second-tier character this much attention when they plan to kill them. And so I was fully prepared to say goodbye to Abraham. At the beginning of the episode, when him and Eugene have their little argument, Eugene tells him, "You have outlived your usefulness." I thought that was a death sentence. I really did. So when we get to the end of the episode and Denise is going on her rant, and then suddenly she gets an arrow through the eye. It's funny, because I expected Abraham to get an arrow through the eye, So even when she's standing on the tracks and she's going on for way too long in one place, I didn't see it coming until it happened. And then I was pleasantly surprised that even though the show does oftentimes follow the comic books, especially in the bigger story sense, this was really impressive how they did the same thing. They gave us this great moment from the comic books, but they still did it in a surprising way. And they intentionally misled us so that if you knew this was coming, you really, really thought it was going to be Abraham. So now Abraham's a wild card. Who knows what's going to happen to him? Negan might kill him by the end of the season. I would be surprised if that happens. It's totally within the realm of possibility because they still build him up. And now that he didn't die this way, maybe there's a false sense of security that this character's not going away. But now it's kind of like in the show, Daryl exists, but Daryl's one of the only characters that does not exist in the comics. So there's always a question about what is his story? Where is he going? But it's really interesting what they did with the crossbow here, because when Daryl met Dwight and actually saved Dwight and those other girls, or other girl by the end, in the beginning of this season, in the comic books we knew that Dwight existed and that he carries a crossbow. That's his weapon. In the comic books, this character of Dwight that works for Negan and the Saviors. And in the TV show, the crossbow is Daryl's thing. So when they introduced Dwight and he didn't have a crossbow, but by the end of the episode he takes Daryl's crossbow, it was a really great kind of explanation for how this character that people from the comics knew had a crossbow ended up with one. And not just any crossbow, but the most famous crossbow in the world of The Walking Dead. So that him having that allowed this moment with Denise to happen, like it happens to Abraham in the comics, and that was really satisfying to see play out. But I'm going to share with you the comic book panel, right? So this is from the comic books, what happens to Abraham. And as you can see, it's exactly like what happened in the episode, except it happened to Denise. And this is Dwight in the comics versus Dwight from the show. And as you can see on the right, this is when we met him earlier in the season before his face was scarred. And in the comic books, we know that Negan punishes his men by burning their faces. And obviously, since Dwight was trying to escape Negan in that previous episode where he met Daryl, he was getting punished for doing so. So that was a nice twist, and I really like how this is coming together. But the big question is, will Negan's introduction in the TV show be like in the comic books? Will he kill the character? And I've said over and over, Daryl as a character self, and it's the simple economics of this, right? The Walking Dead is a business, and they sell a lot more action figures of Daryl than they do other characters. And they sell all kinds of products with his wings from his vest. So even though they say nobody is safe, in business, the characters that make the most money are the safest. And so I think that Daryl is going to stick around. I do not think they're going to kill him unless Norman Reedus really wants to leave the show. And he has been doing movies. He's done 3 movies since The Walking Dead started. So he's been doing a very good job of balancing the schedule. And I really don't think he's leaving. But Steven Yeun, who plays Glenn, it was just announced that he's going to be in a movie soon. Don't know if that means anything. Don't know if that means he's leaving. And now his schedule is freed up because I don't know what that movie's schedule looks like, but Norman Reedus has proven it can be done. So that's how you can read between the lines and infer what's going to happen with these characters. So the other big moment from this episode that is a recreation from the comic books. Oh yeah. Eugene He's got a fever. And the only prescription... Okay, well that was a pretty faithful recreation of Eugene biting off more than he could chew. So that was really funny. I actually didn't know about that from the comic books. I looked it up afterwards, and they did not bring that out of nowhere. And I don't know if that is more or less disturbing than when Rick bit the guy's throat, the claimers. It reminds me of that scene where Rick went crazy and ripped out that man's throat with his teeth. I'm glad they didn't take it that far, because poor Dwight, he's already had his face scarred. That was a great moment. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed it more than Dwight enjoyed it. But Eugene is my man, and he won a lot of points last night. So the other thing that kind of came out of nowhere that really surprised me was Carol's note. So Carol is one of my favorite characters. Want to know how I got these scars? I do. Maybe I don't. Depends on which scars. If they're the scars from Eugene, I don't want to know. I know enough already. So at the end of the episode, it was crazy because you've got a relatively slow episode until the last 15 minutes, and then you've got this firefight and Eugene, going out for the $5 footlong, and then suddenly we get back to Alexandria, and Carol's writing this note, or you hear her reading it off, narrating it, and she's basically saying, I'm leaving. I don't feel like killing anymore, so I'm going to take off. As if she's not going to have to kill people on the outside. If anything, she's going to have to kill more people on the outside. But that was very disappointing for me, because Carol is probably my favorite character, because I feel like she's had the strongest storyline by far. Like, from this abused housewife until she became this badass that saved everyone in Terminus, and then she's the no excuses, no holds barred woman, one woman wrecking crew who killed every single wolf, it seemed like, by herself. Who's been feeding the walkers? Probably Morgan. I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that. The walkers are eating whoever's out there. So, unless you see them incredibly malnourished. There was a really great walker in last night's episode that was, really decrepit. He had the cast on his leg, which I thought was really, really brave of The Walking Dead to draw attention to the plight of handicapped walkers, because they've been marginalized for too long. Even though it appeared as though he may have eaten a toddler, which was incredibly disturbing. And so The Walking Dead last night was one of the more disturbing episodes for a few moments. That moment, and then what happens with Denise. And they've been really, really dark this season. And I think that they're setting a standard for what's to come with Negan, because when he comes in, it's going to get really, really dark consistently, I think. It's the all-out war storyline. Someone has been feeding the walkers before the fence collapsed. At the prison. Oh, who was doing that? Way back at the prison, Lizzie was the one that was feeding the walkers. Remember? Lizzie and her sister Micah, who had that really great episode with Carol and Tyrese. Lizzie admitted that she had been feeding the walkers because she didn't see them as monsters. She just thought of them as different kinds of people. So, yeah, she's all gone. I think that may have been the best episode of the series, to tell you the truth. The one where Carol has Lizzie look at the flowers, which is one of the reasons that I love Carol as a character, because her episodes are so strong. And that one was kind of out of nowhere. It was kind of a side story, but it was so good. So good. Even if you don't like The Walking Dead, even if you've never watched the show, I think you could watch that episode as a standalone and enjoy it. And it's disturbing. I think The Walking Dead is really good when it's disturbing in a really effective way like that. So, yeah, Alexandria has no doctor. What are they going to do about that? I don't know. It feels like Eugene's got his hands full. He's not going to be studying medicine. Gabriel, put him to use. He could learn how to be a doctor. Maggie grew up on the farm with Herschel, but she's kind of trying to be a politician now. The Hilltop does have a doctor, but I think the Hilltop's pretty far away. So I don't know if he'll do house calls, but that was the first thing I thought. Like, let's rush Eugene to the Hilltop and visit their doctor, but I don't know. It seems like, I don't know if this happens in the comic books, but it seems like if you have a doctor, they would be a major target for kidnapping in this world. Like, the Hilltop doctor, if I were them, I wouldn't have let on that I even had a doctor. I don't know about, like, Negan, his group, the Saviors. Dwight says to Daryl whenever he's holding Eugene at gunpoint, you're going to take us to your town, your camp, wherever it is, and we're going to take whatever and whoever we want, which implies to me that they look for useful people, like doctors. Of course, the fool doesn't realize he just shot their only doctor through the head. He probably could have kept her around. The internet has blown up about The Walking Dead. It sure has. It blows up every Sunday night in the U.S. and every Monday night in the U.K. I like to follow the Walking Dead UK hashtag because I always know what's coming and I don't spoil it, but I like to just see, I like to watch it unfold again with other people watching it fresh, knowing, oh, you know, you think Denise is making dumb decisions? Like someone wrote, Denise is signing her death certificate. It's like, you have no idea. Well, actually, no, you do have an idea. You know exactly what's going to happen, but I know what's going to happen. I know how it happens. It's fun to watch other people watch and react. So that's one of the benefits of the different time zones. And I try to be friendly with the spoilers. I try to hold off until after the UK has had a chance to watch, because I know there's a lot of fans watching from there. But for the most part, I keep it under my hat. I don't watch in advance, though, so I don't know in advance, but I do have an impression of what's going to happen from the comics. So, speaking of which, another moment that the episode recreated from the comics was Morgan in his jail. When he was welding last week, it seemed like he was working on a jail. I think that even if you've never read the comics, you could gather that, because what else would he be welding? He had that whole jail cell scene with Eastman earlier in the season. And so that is, in fact, what he was building. I won't tell you what's happening with it, because maybe they'll change it from the comics, but it's interesting. Like, why didn't anyone think of this earlier? I like that now they have the chance to hold prisoners and interrogate them instead of just shooting them in the head, as Rick tends to do. Just seems a little foolish. Hellbound Angel, sorry you have to go as well, but thank you for joining us. If you guys like this, we'll try to come back. There's only 2 episodes left of The Walking Dead, but I'll try to do this again if you guys are into it. So, best quote, you got about as much chance as picking a turd up by the clean end. Yes. I was one of the, when I thought Abraham was going to die tonight, and I thought he was going to die for weeks, I have been dreading this show without his quotes. His quotes are amazing. They always steal the show, and for Abraham to get killed would be a great tragedy to the English language. He is Shakespearean. And so I'm really glad he's still around, so we can get some additional nuggets of wisdom about turds. Morgan believes that people can change, but Rick doesn't. I don't give a monkey's left nut. What was the other quote? About he talked to Eugene about his chomping down on Dwight. He had a great quote. I'm going to read it real quick. Let me find it here. You know how to bite a dick, Eugene. I mean that with utmost of respect. That's your bro right there. But yeah, so Morgan still believes people can change. Rick doesn't. Whether you believe people can change or not, having a jail cell is a good idea in this world. Having a place where you can keep prisoners and you can learn things instead of just blowing their brains out is a good idea. It is one of the first good ideas anyone's had in this show in a long time. And it came from Morgan, who's a guy who's been full of nothing but bad ideas for a very long time. So that's good. My question for you is, do you think that Morgan is changing? Because we saw Carol change. It seems like what's going on in Morgan's head has gotten to Carol, and she has decided now to leave Alexandria because she doesn't want to kill anymore, okay? She's got a case of the Morgans. But has Carol infected Morgan? Do you think that he's coming to grips with the idea of killing again? Because it feels like with this all-out war with the Saviors, Morgan would be a great guy to have on your side. And I would like to see him be able to use his skills in the war. And I don't know. I don't know if everyone's becoming more Morgan or if it's a balancing act and some of them are also becoming more Carol, previous Carol. I don't have any idea what's going to happen with Carol leaving because in the comic books her character is very different. So there's, as far as I can tell, there's no spoilers. I can only hope that she comes back in a way that's as significant as whenever she came back and saved everyone at Terminus, because that was just such an amazing moment for the show, an amazing episode for Carol. And I don't think they'll do that twice because it seems a little redundant, but I think there's got to be something really amazing in the future for Carol. Maybe we don't see her for a while. Maybe it's a couple episodes like they did last with the Terminus thing. She was only out for a few episodes. Or maybe she is gone for a season, which I would hate because I love the Carol storyline. I love seeing her progress. But if she comes back in a season and maybe she's the leader of some major group or she's bringing something amazing to the table, I would love to see that. Or maybe they find her somewhere captive. I find that hard to believe because Carol is the one that takes the captives. But I don't know. I'm really interested to see where her story goes because it's been the best. And please, Walking Dead writers, don't ruin Carol. This was a little out of nowhere. What happened with her in this note last night surprised me. And I don't think it necessarily surprised me in a good way because it feels a little sudden. But don't let me down. I believe in Carol. So, Morgan was a father and a husband. He lost his wife and son. He then became crazy, but after meeting the Order of the Peace guy, Postman. Eastman was his name. Taught him Aikido. I really liked, speaking of standalone episodes, I like the one with Lizzie and Micah and Carol and Tyrese. Forget the name of that episode. But the other basically standalone episode I like the most is Clear, where Rick and Michonne and Carl find Morgan whenever he had been gone since the first episode, and he's completely crazy. That was an amazing episode where he's in the midst of this breakdown because his son Dwayne had been killed. And I was really, really disappointed by the episode earlier this season where Morgan meets Eastman, and he learns Aikido and all of that. And I'll tell you why. First of all, it came right after Glenn's dumpster dive, so it was a terrible time to not get any resolution. The cliffhanger, the fact that they didn't revisit that for 4 episodes is completely inexcusable and was, I think, a huge mistake the writers have to have understood by now. But when I knew that they were doing a 90-minute episode, a special 30 extra minutes dedicated to Morgan in a flashback, because they announced that in advance, I thought, yes, we're going to see what happens with Morgan and his son. And then we found out that it's an episode where Morgan is, with Eastman and a goat for 90 minutes. And we never heard anything more about his son. And it just seems like a colossal wasted opportunity, because that's the story I'd really like to see. Oh, we have a guest. Sorry, I don't always see that. Let me see if this works. Jennifer, I'm going to try to guest you in. I still hope they go back to Dwayne and Morgan's story someday, because I'd love to see what really happened. The Grove, that is the name of the episode. With thank you so much, Chris Saunders. I knew it was something like that. I wanted to say The Clearing, but I knew I was confusing it with Clear, which was the Morgan episode. Jennifer, I'm trying to guest you in. I don't know. I just have a black screen. I don't know if it's working. Thank you for becoming a fan, Brooke. I really appreciate it. YouNow is relatively new to me. I do Periscope typically, but this guesting feature is one of the reasons I really would like to switch to YouNow. even though it's not working. So Jennifer, I'm sorry, it's not working. I'm going to click drop, and I'll try to click you manually in. How do I do that? Yes. See if it works. And I'm sorry, so Alyssa, if you want to guest, we can try you as well, because I really like the guesting idea. I want this to be something where we can talk about The Walking Dead together. I like reading what you have to say, but I like talking to you a lot better. So this is not working. Jennifer, if you got that message, please click to guest in. I would appreciate if we could get a guest. And if that doesn't work, Alyssa, I will guest you in. And try again. Nope, I'm going to try Alyssa. Oops. No, it's not letting me. It's not letting me guest you, Alyssa. I don't know why. If you join my guest queue, I'll approve you. So anyway, give that a try. So what else? What else? Who do you think is going to die? Because we lost Denise in the last episode, and there are 2 episodes left. I don't think anyone's going to die next episode, but I think that it's going to set up the danger and be sort of an immediate lead-in to the season finale. And I am sure that somebody is going to die in the season finale. And I am pretty sure it's going to be a main character. When I say a main character, I mean like a top-tier character, which means it's not going to be Rick, but Rick would be the main top-tier character. There's Rick, there's Carol, there's Daryl, there's Glenn, there's Carl, you could say. Basically all the characters we've been with so long. And arguably Michonne and Maggie, I would say, are close to top tier, if not top tier characters. Secondary characters are Abraham and Sasha and Eugene and these guys that came along a little later. Morgan is kind of a special character in and of himself because Lenny James is such an accomplished actor. I want to consider him, since he was in the first episode and so important to the story, a top tier character, even if he is secondary. Chris, I don't think it's going to be Daryl that dies. But he is a popular theory, so I do not count it. Not always in a good way, but you think it could be Michonne because of her relationship with Rick. I think that's possible, and also a good point, because I wouldn't typically say that Michonne is likely to die, but Denai Guerrera, who plays Michonne, has been finding a great deal of success away from The Walking Dead lately. She has 2 plays on Broadway right now that she wrote, not even starring in, but she wrote them. So she's actually becoming a very accomplished individual way beyond The Walking Dead. And so for Denai Guerrera to leave would not necessarily surprise me, because she could dedicate her energies to that, which she's obviously good at and finding great success at. So I think it is a good point. I think Michonne is definitely a target. I don't know if I would give her. I don't know if she'd be my first or my second or even my third choice for who I think is likely to die in the season finale. But I think that she's one of them. I could count her in one hand. So I think that Daryl's sticking around. I think that Michonne was probably sticking around, but that's a good point. I think I've been saying for a while that The Walking Dead might pull a switcheroo, and they might end up killing Maggie in the season finale, because when they introduced Negan in the comic books, they immediately make him the biggest villain in The Walking Dead by having him kill a main character. And so the only way that The Walking Dead TV series could bring that up to the next level and make Negan even worse on TV is if he ends up killing a main character, Maggie, who happens to be a pregnant woman, because that's pretty rough. And so the way that The Walking Dead has been pushing the envelope this season, I would definitely say that Maggie's in my top 3 potential victims for Negan. And I think it would be a really devastating thing for our main characters and be such an incredible and painful cliffhanger for us to sit with while we wait for season 7. Yes, I just thought about that while I said it out loud. Season 7 of The Walking Dead is what we will be waiting for after just 2 more episodes. That is a painful thought. I think that is more painful than the thought of any main character dying, is that now we have to play the waiting game again. But on the plus side, Fear the Walking Dead is coming back, and even though I think most of us agree Fear the Walking Dead is not nearly as engrossing as The Walking Dead, we only got 6 episodes of a first season, just a taste, and the previews for season 2 look really good. So I'm looking forward to that, and that will help to pass the time. Chris, it has been great talking to you too. And if I'm on here next week, I'll either be on YouNow next week at this time or on Periscope. But either way, if you follow @EssentialDead on Twitter, that's where I announce things. And I'd like to keep trying YouNow, but I do get a bigger audience on Periscope. So it's a balancing act. If we can grow this on YouNow, then I'll definitely keep coming back to YouNow because I like the idea of guesting, even though it never works. But maybe Chris will look for you next week, and if you're here, guest in. Love to talk to you in real time. And anyone else, if anyone else wants to guest in, we have not had a successful guest this session, and it would be a nice way. I'm going to start wrapping up as well because Monday night is my second biggest night of TV. Sunday is the biggest night, but Monday night is also big because I watch Gotham, and then I watch Bates Motel, and then I watch Better Call Saul. Sorry, there's so many shows on. It took me a moment. So I do not get a break. And on the East Coast in New York City right now, it is 6:43, and it'll take me about 45 minutes to get home. So I always end up running up my stairs to my TV right as Gotham is coming on, with no time to take my shoes off. And it's going to be one of those nights. So also, let me know, do you watch, are there any other shows that you watch that you would like to talk about? Because The Walking Dead is definitely the biggest one I found for doing live stream conversations on Periscope or here or otherwise, even though here is new to me. But I follow many shows, and Essential TV is my company, and so we have independent Twitter profiles for many popular shows. The Walking Dead, The Flash, Arrow, all the CW DC shows, Legends of Tomorrow, Gotham, Game of Thrones, which will be back very soon, Bates Motel, Better Call Saul, American Horror Story. We watch a lot of shows, and we live tweet them typically. So if anyone has a desire, if there's an audience to discuss these other shows, we could do this for other shows. I just find that The Walking Dead is the easiest one because it seems like everybody watches this show. Everybody and their grandmother watches this show. Vargas Matthew, I do like The Walking Dead. You are very perceptive. But I like other shows too. So, anyway, so in summary, the last episode of The Walking Dead was an eye-opening experience in the most painful way possible. The second most painful maybe because Carl had an eye-opening experience earlier this season. It always comes in threes. My question is, does the governor count as one, or is that too long ago and we're expecting one more person to lose an eye? It's good to have a spare, though. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of Carl with an eye patch. Who do I like from The Walking Dead? Carol's my favorite character, although I am disappointed that it looks like we're not going to see her for a while. Obviously, Rick, he's great to follow. He's had some dumb storylines, like whenever he went crazy in prison and saw the ghost of Lori, but since then, he's been really good, and I really like him as a character, even though he goes from sane to crazy with a drop of a hat, but I guess that makes him appealing and interesting. I would say Maggie is one of the most interesting characters recently. And so, especially that episode, it was last week, the episode with Carol and Maggie. I spent a lot of time talking about Carol, but I really didn't talk about Maggie much. And the same time that Carol was sort of mellowing out and trying not to kill, Maggie was going Rambo on that group of saviors. And so I have to wonder if Maggie is going to be my new favorite character, if she sort of fills that Carol void in Carol's absence. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think Maggie has been set up really great this season to be a much bigger character than she ever has been before. I'm just a little worried that they're doing that so that they kill her at the end of the season, which is entirely possible. So don't ever invest too much. You can have a favorite character, but you need to have a spare favorite character. Because, as they say, anyone can go at any time, even though we know that the characters that sell action figures will be the last to go. And that's Rick and Daryl and probably Michonne. I don't know if many people buy Glenn or Maggie action figures, but I'm sure they buy less than they buy Daryl stuff. So, anyway, guys, if you have any questions, comments, ideas, thoughts, you can post them here. I'm going to start watching the Essential TV YouNow wall. I like that YouNow lets you do broadcasting live video, but then it also has a wall built in so you can do messaging. That's something that Periscope just isn't good at. You can do Periscope with Twitter, but it feels like the message is lost. So if you enjoyed this, let me know, because I like talking to people in real time about The Walking Dead. And I like the comments. I'd like to have more. And maybe we can build something. And maybe I don't ever have to use Periscope again, which would be great, because it's just not a good app. I wish they would build in some kind of guesting feature. Anyway, I appreciate your time. Look for us next week. Follow @EssentialDead on Twitter, where we will announce when we're going live. And we will also live tweet. And I keep it pretty spoiler-free, except while I'm live tweeting, you'll be able to infer some spoilers. Hi, Jess. Spoiler alert, Daryl dies at some point in The Walking Dead. Happened in the comic. That is not true. Daryl is not in the comic books. Daryl is, he was created for the TV show. But Twisted Daddy, you could have got a lesser man with that. Jess, I will try to guest you in, but it hasn't been working. And I'm trying to leave because I have to hurry home to watch Gotham, but I'd really love to get a guest on, and the feature, it just hasn't been working. I think it's giving me an error. I just tried, and it went away. I don't know. I'm using Firefox. My understanding is Firefox has less bugs with YouNow than other browsers, but I might have to try Chrome next time. So, sorry, Jess, the guesting did not work. So, who are you rooting for? To die and to live is the question. Yeah, a lot of people are obsessed with Daryl. And Daryl's been a letdown this season. No offense, because I like Daryl as much as the next guy, but Daryl has really not done that much that was that cool this season. I like the episode with him and Rick where they meet Jesus, but it's like really that's the only episode that's had a great Daryl moment this entire season. Last night's episode was okay. He goes out with Denise, but like really what did he do? He tried to drive a stick shift truck, not effectively, and like that's it. Carl is the new governor. Carl for governor 2016. Vote for Carl. All right, guys. Have a good day. Go watch Gotham. You can follow @EssentialGotham, and if I get home in time, I will be live tweeting. It looks like a really great episode with the Penguin, who, the character of the Penguin is played by Robin Lord Taylor, who, if you recall, was the character of Sam, not Jesse's son Sam that got eaten earlier this season, but Sam who Rick and Carol met back in the episode where Carol left, or Rick sent Carol off previously. So anyway, Robin Lord Taylor, it was great to see him get a regular role. It's just too bad that he didn't get more to do on The Walking Dead, except for that one episode and then having his throat slit at Terminus. Anyway, feel free to drop by and chill. You'll be watching WrestleMania. Cool, April 3rd. I haven't watched wrestling for a very long time, but WrestleMania is a big event. I don't think you necessarily have to be following it to enjoy a WrestleMania event. Royal Rumble was always my favorite whenever I used to watch wrestling. Anyway, thanks, guys. Have a good night, and keep on walking.